Without telescopes, they mapped the movements of Venus more precisely than any astronomer in Europe. Without metal tools, they built cities that still stand 1,000 years later. Without anyone teaching them, they invented the concept of zero. Independently, centuries before it reached the Western world, their calendar was more accurate than the one we use today. And then, around 900 AD, they walked away. They abandoned their greatest cities, left temples to the jungle, left palaces to the vines, left behind a silence so complete that, within a few generations, even their own descendants had forgotten those cities ever existed. Then in the 1800s, explorers cutting through jungle with machetes started finding pyramids. This is the story of the Maya, one of the greatest and most mysterious civilizations in human history. Who were the Maya? The Maya were not one empire with one capital and one ruler. They were a civilization, a shared culture, language family, and worldview spread across what is now southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. Maya civilization began forming around 2000 BC, when villages along river valleys in Central America started growing into something more. By 500 BC, they were building stone temples. By 250 AD, the beginning of what scholars call the Classic Period, they were building cities that rivaled anything in the ancient world. Not one city, dozens of cities. Each one an independent city-state with its own king, its own army, its own artistic tradition, its own political alliances and enemies. Think of it like ancient Greece, many cities, one shared civilization. The cityist Classic Period Maya cities were extraordinary by any standard. Tikal in modern Guatemala rose above the jungle canopy, its tallest pyramid reaching 65 meters into the sky. From the top, you could see nothing but green in every direction, and other pyramids breaking through the trees like islands in a sea of leaves. At its peak, Tikal had a population of perhaps 100,000 people. Palenque in modern Mexico had a royal palace complex of such beauty and intricacy that when the first European explorers found it in the 1700s, they refused to believe indigenous people had built it. They invented theories about lost Roman colonies and sunken continents. It was easier for them to imagine that than to accept what was obviously true. Caracol in Belize, Copan in Honduras, Calakmul in Mexico, city after city, each one a center of art, trade, politics, and knowledge. And beneath all of them sewage systems, because the Maya understood sanitation in ways that European cities would not manage until the 19th century. The mathematics of nothing here is the thing about zero that most people do not fully appreciate. Zero is not just a number. Zero is a concept, the idea that nothing can be represented, counted, and calculated with, that absence itself has a symbol and a value, is one of the most profound intellectual leaps in human history. Why most ancient number systems could not do it. Roman numerals have no zero. Try doing long division in Roman numerals, you cannot. The Maya invented zero independently. They used it as a placeholder in their base 20 number system, which allowed them to represent enormous numbers and perform complex calculations with accuracy that would not be matched in Europe for centuries. They applied this mathematics to time, to the movements of stars and planets, to architecture, to the alignment of their cities with celestial events. They were not primitive. They were operating at a level of mathematical sophistication that the rest of the world was still racing to catch up with. Astronomers Maya were obsessed with time, not because they were mystical or strange, but because time governed everything: planting seasons, flood cycles, religious ceremonies, the movements of armies and kings. All of it tied to the calendar. So they watched the sky with extraordinary patience and precision. They tracked the movements of the Sun, Moon, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter over decades and centuries, recording their observations in books and on stone monuments. They calculated that the Venus cycle, the period of Venus's appearance as morning and evening star, was 583.92 days. The modern measurement is 583.92 days, without a single piece of modern technology. Using only observation, mathematics, and time, they predicted solar and lunar eclipses. They built their temples and palaces in precise alignment with astronomical events, so that on specific days of year, the sun would shine through a specific window, or a shadow would fall in a specific pattern. El Castillo, The Great Pyramid at Chichen Itza is the most famous example. Twice a year, at the spring and autumn equinoxes, the shadow of the pyramid's corner creates the illusion of a serpent descending the northern staircase. The effect was deliberately engineered. Planned, calculated, built into stone so it would happen forever. It still does, perfectly, every equinox. 1,000 years later, the writing and the burning Maya developed one of only 5 writing systems ever independently invented in human history. Maya script used a combination of logograms, symbols representing whole words, and syllabic signs, symbols representing sounds. It was a fully functional writing system capable of recording anything: history, mythology, astronomy, politics, poetry, jokes. Maya scribes recorded everything. On stone monuments called stelae, on the walls of temples, on ceramic pots, and on books, screenfold books made of fig bark paper, coated with lime plaster, filled with painted text and images. In the 1560s, a Spanish bishop named Diego de Landa organized the burning of every Maya book he could find. He believed they were instruments of devil worship. In a single afternoon in July 1562, he burned dozens of books, possibly hundreds, in the town square of Moni in the Yucatan. When he realized later that the books had also contained valuable historical information, he felt some regret. He then wrote his own account of Maya culture, one of our most important sources for understanding the Maya today. The man who destroyed the library also wrote the only surviving description of what was in it of all the books the Maya wrote, only for survive today, for out of what must have been thousands. It is one of the great cultural catastrophes in human history. The collapse of between approximately 800 and 1000 AD. The great cities of the classic Maya southern lowlands collapsed. Not all at once, city by city, pyramid construction stopped, monuments stopped being carved. Royal dynasties that had ruled for centuries fell silent, and the people, millions of them, left. The jungle moved in quickly. Within decades, vines covered the temples, trees grew through palace floors. Within a few generations, the cities were invisible from a distance of 50 meters. Why? The honest answer is that we do not fully know, but the evidence points strongly to several overlapping causes. Severe drought, lake sediment cores from the Maya lowlands show clear evidence of prolonged drought episodes during the 800s and 900s. Cities that had grown to populations of tens and hundreds of thousands suddenly could not feed themselves. Warfare. Maya city states had always fought each other. As the environmental crisis deepened, the wars became more intense and more destructive. Trade networks collapsed. Political systems that depended on surplus and exchange could not function. Deforestation. The Maya had cleared enormous areas of jungle for agriculture, for cities, for fuel to fire the lime plaster that coated their buildings. Without tree cover, soil eroded. The land became less productive exactly when it needed to produce more. These factors fed into each other. Drought weakened agriculture. Weakened agriculture caused political instability. Political instability caused war. War disrupted trade, and the whole system, which had functioned brilliantly for centuries, came apart. The Maya today here is what people most often misunderstand about the Maya collapse. The Maya did not disappear. The classic period cities of the southern lowlands were abandoned, but other Maya cities, Chichen Itza, Uxmal, Mayapan in the north, continued to flourish for centuries afterward. When the Spanish arrived in the 1500s, millions of Maya people were living across Central America. They fought the Spanish conquest longer and harder than almost any other people in the Americas. Today, approximately 6 million Maya people live across Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. They speak dozens of related Maya languages. They maintain cultural traditions that connect directly to the civilization that built Tikal and Chichen Itza. They never left. They were never gone. The cities were abandoned. The civilization transformed. But the people and their knowledge, their languages, their connection to the land and sky their ancestors studied for centuries, survived. Before Europe knew the earth was round, the Maya had mapped the heavens. Before the concept of zero reached the Western world, the Maya were calculating with it. Before anyone else built cities in the jungles of Central America, the Maya were building ones that still stand today. And after everything, the drought, the collapse, the conquest, the burning of their books, They are still here, 6 million people. Still speaking the languages, still farming the land, still watching the sky. The pyramids wait in the jungle. The shadow serpent descends every equinox without fail. And the Maya, the real Maya. Not the ruins, but the people, are still here to see it.